There's a place you can go where the laws of physics stop making sense. Not a country, not a dimension in some sci-fi novel. A place thousands of people have visited independently without coordinating their stories, and they all describe the same thing, the same beings, the same impossible architecture, the same feeling that they've been there before, or that it's been waiting for them. I'm talking about the DMT space, and I'm talking about the entities that live there. The ones Terence McKenna called the Machine Elves. Now here's what makes this different from every other drug story you've ever heard. These aren't hallucinations. Or if they are, they're hallucinations that follow rules. They're consistent, reproducible. Thousands of trip reports spanning decades, across cultures, all converging on the same descriptions. Geometric gestures made of light. Entities that communicate in visual language. A realm that feels more real than this one. The skeptics will tell you it's just brain chemistry, neurons misfiring, a predictable reaction to a tryptamine molecule. But I've been looking into this for years now, and the deeper I go, the less that explanation holds up. Because if this is just a chemical trick, why does everyone meet the same entities? Why do they all describe the same place? And why do the elves seem to know you're coming? Let's start with what we're officially told. DMT, N,N-dimethyltryptamine, is a Schedule I controlled substance. A powerful psychedelic naturally occurring in hundreds of plant species and, quietly, in the human brain. The mainstream story is simple. You smoke it, you trip hard for about 10 minutes, you come back. It's treated like LSD's wild cousin. A curiosity, a recreational chemical with no practical application and no deeper meaning. Just neurons lighting up in funny patterns. The trip reports get filed under subjective experience and dismissed. But here's the first crack in that story. DMT isn't like other psychedelics. It doesn't distort reality. It replaces it. Users don't report seeing tracers or breathing walls. They report being violently launched out of their body and arriving somewhere else. A place with its own geometry, its own inhabitants, its own logic. And they report this in strikingly similar language. McKenna described it in the 80s and 90s. But go read Arrowwood. Go read Reddit threads from last week. Same beings, same architecture, same sense of impossible familiarity. If this were just random brain noise, we'd expect random experiences. We don't get that. We get patterns, consistency, repetition. The entities are described as hyper-intelligent, playful, sometimes mischievous. They communicate in cascades of color and form, bypassing language entirely. They seem delighted when you arrive, like they've been expecting you. Some users report being shown things, taught things, given information they couldn't have known. Others report being mocked or tested or ignored, but almost everyone reports the same setting, a space that feels older than the universe, populated by beings that feel older still. So what's the evidence that this isn't just a shared hallucination? First, the consistency. Dr. Rick Strassman ran the first legal DMT studies in the United States in the 90s at the University of New Mexico. He injected volunteers with pure DMT under controlled conditions and recorded their reports. He expected personal visions, individual imagery. What he got was convergence. Participants who had never met, who had no prior knowledge of McKenna or Machine Elves, described the same entities, the same environments. Strassman wrote a book about it, DMT, the Spirit Molecule, and he admits the consistency rattled him. He's a psychiatrist, a scientist, and even he couldn't explain why people kept describing the same autonomous beings. Second, the entities behave like they have agency. They react to the user. They initiate contact. They perform actions, showing objects, manipulating space, communicating intent. This isn't like seeing a pink elephant that just stands there. This is like walking into a room and being greeted by something that was already in the middle of a conversation. Third, the place has architecture, structures, recurring motifs, the chrysanthemum breakthrough pattern, the dome, the tunnel of light, the impossible geometries that users say feel more intricate and real than anything in waking life. And fourth, this is the one that makes my skin crawl, Some users report that the entities remember them, not in a vague, symbolic way. They report returning to the DMT space and being recognized, greeted like an old friend, asked where they've been. If this is just a chemical, why does it produce a persistent environment with persistent inhabitants? Why does it feel like you're visiting a place that exists whether you're there or not? So if the Machine Elves are real, and I'm saying they are, what does that mean? First, it means consciousness is not produced by the brain. It means the brain is a receiver, not a generator. DMT doesn't create the experience. It tunes you in. It changes the channel. Strassman himself floated this idea. What if DMT is allowing access to dimensions or entities that exist independently of our perception? What if the brain is a filter, and DMT temporarily shuts the filter off? Second, it means we've been lied to about the nature of reality. The materialist story, that matter is all there is, that consciousness is an accident, that death is the end, falls apart if there are realms we can visit, populated by intelligent beings, accessible through a molecule our own brains produce. Why would evolution give us endogenous DMT if there's nothing on the other side to meet? Third, it connects to every other suppressed spiritual technology. Ayahuasca ceremonies, the Eleusinian mysteries, the Soma of the Vedas, shamanic practices across every continent. What if all of these were ways of accessing the same place, the same entities? What if the Machine Elves aren't new? What if they're the oldest contact we've ever had, and the modern world has just made us forget? And fourth, it raises the question, why is this illegal? If DMT is a doorway to another dimension, if it allows contact with non-human intelligence, why is it Schedule I? Why is research strangled? Why is it treated like heroin when it's non-addictive, naturally occurring, and produces experiences that users describe as the most meaningful of their lives? What are they afraid we'll find? I keep coming back to something McKenna said. He said the entities told him, "We are so glad you're here. We've been trying to reach you." Not, "We're surprised you showed up." Not, "What are you doing here?" They were waiting, and thousands of other people report the same thing. The sense that the elves have been there all along, on the other side of a very thin veil, waiting for us to remember how to tune in. Maybe DMT isn't a drug. Maybe it's a tool, a key. Maybe the Machine Elves aren't hallucinations, they're neighbors. Neighbors in a dimension we forgot how to visit. And maybe the reason this has been buried, mocked, and criminalized is because if enough people took that trip and came back with the same story, the entire framework of materialist science would collapse. You can't build a control system on people who've seen the other side. You can't sell them the lie that this is all there is. So they make it illegal. They call it a hallucination. They bury Strassman's research and let it fade into obscurity. But the entities are still there. Still waiting. Still reaching out to anyone brave enough to smoke a little powder and see what's on the other side. The question isn't whether they're real. The question is, why don't we want to know?